Well, hey, everybody. Oh, come on. Hey, everybody. How are you guys? Everybody good? Man, I'm so, that's good. We're talking about ladies tonight. Come on. If you're brand new here, just as Ellie said earlier, we want to say welcome. My name's EJ. I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm going to sit for as long as I can. Y'all know that I can't do that well. The ADD just takes over. But this is my now 10th message in 7 days, and I am not as young as I used to be. I'm just going to call it out, okay? So for all of you who have not hit your 30s yet, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But this is what I want to say. I was praying earlier today in a moment of sheer exhaustion. And you guys know when you're really tired, and when you're really tired, you just get a little bit like, I'll just say weepy. Well, I do. And I was thinking about tonight, and I was thinking about the ladies within our community. And you guys know that I have Ruth and Gideon, and I just love my little Ruth. And I was thinking about so many of you young ladies who sit in these chairs week in and week out. And those of you who may have phenomenal relationships with your dad, and those of you who have absolutely horrendous relationships too. And I was thinking about just as the role of a shepherd within this community, what my responsibility is to each of you. And I started thinking about Ruth. And of course, I started crying even more. I want you guys to hear a couple of things right before we even get into the message, into the text. One, if you are a young woman in this room, I want you to know that not only the guys within our ministry, Trevor, Ellie, Tyler, myself, we deeply love you guys and care about you guys. But Taylor does as well. And I had this thought where I was like, I'm going to buy every girl a rose. And then I was like, that's just cheesy. And then I was like, I can't afford roses for everybody, so I'm just going to get everybody a petal, and they can put it inside their Bible and press it. And I'm like, that's even worse. But there was sentiment behind it. And I didn't get roses or rose petals. But I want you to know that I think of each of you in such a high esteem. And I want you to know how much each of us on staff here love you and care about you. And I'm going to say some tough things tonight. And as I say some tough things, I want you to know that we deeply love you. But I want to talk about tonight how it should be. And last weekend, we talked about what a godly man looks like. And we talked about that real men fear God, that they accept responsibility and step up to the plate, that they act courageously, and that they're men of honor. And before we dive too deep into anything, guys, I don't want you to check out tonight. And the reason that I say this to each of you young men within this community is there are things that we're going to be looking at tonight that are just as important to you as they are to the young women within the crowd tonight. And men, we have a responsibility to not only encourage but to uphold, to help them to seek the Lord in such a way that we, as God-honoring, God-fearing men, allow them to live this virtuous life that we're going to talk about tonight. We are called to encourage them, to uphold them, to uplift them so that they can seek out the things that I'm calling them through the text tonight to live out. In the same way, ladies, your role is to continue to seek those out for our young men. And I want to dive right into some what I believe is refreshing truth tonight, because sometimes I think women feel as though the Proverb 31 woman is unobtainable, and there's a reason for that. Within the church culture, we have basically taken Proverbs 31 and we have beaten it upside of your heads We have thrown it down your throats, ladies, and it's absolutely amazing. But the problem is I know the difference quite a bit between guys and gals. And for most of you, when you hear what is described tonight, you're going to sit back and you're going to say, I can't do that. I can't be that. And the truth is just as I said to the guys last week, your role, your opportunity as you're growing to be more like Jesus is to strive to become like this woman. But let me be clear here. In Proverbs 31, the first 10 verses are written about a king. And the king's mother is describing the kind of woman she would hope that the king would find in Proverbs 31. Let me say this. Although there is a very true reality that you could become like this virtuous woman, it is like the pinnacle of all women. Okay, actually how the text opens up, we'll dive into it in a minute here. The word virtuous here, or the one to be exalted, is the same word that's used as a man of valor. A decorated war hero. This isn't somebody who's just like in the typical army. This is someone who is rallied behind, that everyone looks to consistently and always. And I don't want to just let you young ladies off easy. I'm not trying to do that. But what I want to say is through my spirit, I'm communicating to each of you is this is obtainable. But as it's obtainable, you have to walk in it. It's not just something that happens overnight. It's something that you have to strive for. So I want to uphold you as your pastor, as one of your pastors, as one of the men within this community, and rally around you and say, we can go after it. And I want to open with the same thought as I want to close with tonight, and it's this. The number one thing that a godly young man or woman can do in the pursuit of one another is fear the Lord. I love how Proverbs 31:30 says, it says this. Proverbs 31:30 says, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but the woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. The woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. I love how Proverbs 1:7 says. It says this. We find a very similar declaration. It says this. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And if you missed last week, I talk about how this reverent fear of who God is what we should be striving after. So you can just see in the beginning of these two passages that the Lord deeply desires us as his children to fear him, but he emphasizes this first passage to women. And it's the same thing that we heard last week. So let's be honest for a minute. Godliness, for most women within our culture, is not the top priority of most young women. And for some of us, we like that, and we take advantage of that. Because there's a different fear that a lot of our young ladies have, a different type of fear. See, fearing God puts you in this place of respect and honor. But elevating him above everything in our life is such a good quality that for so many of us, we get mixed up in this it's so turbulent, this thought that there's other things within my life that I have to fear. And what women, I can't do it anymore, I tried, tend to fear is that they place honor in a whole bunch of different things that don't actually honor God. There's this unhealthy fear then that becomes in their lives, and it puts you in a place of bondage. And ladies, what I want to say is I'm going to go through 3 or 4 different lists tonight. The first list that I go through is a list that I think that many of you are trapped in bondage within. That the fear, an unhealthy fear versus a healthy fear of the Lord, is trapped within you. And because of that trap, you've become a slave to it. So there's 10 things right off the bat, and you should write these down, okay? The first one is this, beauty. The first thing that you get enslaved by is beauty. Isn't it funny that the most fleeting thing, as I mentioned in Proverbs, is the thing that gets the most attention? How about self-care? So many young women I know buy into the idea that you are the center of the universe, so you have to be taken care of, especially take care of yourself first and foremost. And the honest opinion of this is that we love ourselves so much that it ends up being at the cost of others. Number 3, self-satisfaction. The modern day woman or women are told that do whatever you have to do so that you're happy. Because again, you're the center of the universe. Number 4, you desire or have an unhealthy fear of wealth and power. An unhealthy fear of wealth and power. Don't get me wrong, women should be hard workers. I believe in that. I've seen that in my beautiful wife. She works harder than I do day in and day out. Ladies, if you desire to be in the workplace, you belong in the workplace. You have a spot, and within my book, I believe that you are needed and desired there. And within that, I want to say that you are not limited because you are a woman. But there is an unhealthy place and an unhealthy fear that we begin to take this to an extreme, fearing that if we're not successful, that if we don't have wealth, that if we don't have power, that these things will at some point, or should at some point, replace what we need from the Lord. Number 5, social status. Who you are to others define who you are to yourself. Number 6, I think, is tied completely to number 7, and within it, you need an attention from men. I think the number 1 place of brokenness that I see from our young ladies, other than their beauty, is the attention or lack of attention that they get from men. And I've heard this over and over and over. I've heard this trend going around where girls do their makeup, they dress up as other women who are already idolized so that they can't be one-upped. And it makes me sick. And if that's you and it's true, then you need to back away from it. Because so many of you, number 7, are looking for that attention from women. You're looking from it for men, but you're also looking and having this fear of it for women. And as you have it, it's actually breaking you down further and further and further, and pulling you further away from this victorious and virtuous woman that we're going to talk about today. Number 8, perfectionism. So many of you here are self-proclaimed perfectionists. And you're like, okay, EJ, 5 was enough. We didn't need 10. Anybody feel like this? Sometimes I wish I was. Ladies, you're so hard on yourselves. Every little thing needs to be perfect. Number 9, you have an unhealthy fear of proving your worthiness, and you fear failure beyond what the Lord wants you to. And then number 10, materialism. It's such a gross word. As Taylor and I were coming up with this list, and Taylor has done an absolutely phenomenal job of reviewing what I wrote today and helping me with it. I just want to say that, ladies, so you know this isn't just my perspective, but I actually got a woman's perspective on this. Amen. Because, yeah. All I can think about is Regina George from Mean Girls. Like, brutal. And for so many of you guys, materialism is what you fear. If you don't get the one fancy set of clothes from Anthro or the pillow, Lord help us. You guys, and here's what I'll say, not all these things are inherently bad. But for many of you, you place them above the things in your life that actually do matter. And I wanted to start off with that list tonight because as I shift our attention to what this passage says about fearing the Lord, I want you to remember that it's a healthy fear of the Lord that drives all of these virtues. It's a healthy fear of the Lord that as you lean into it, helps you to grow to become like this woman. So I want to shift our attention back to the passage tonight, Proverbs 31. We're going to pick up in verse 10, and I want you to remember that initially, as we frame this up, that this passage is written from a mother's perspective of the desire for her son. Okay, so let me frame this up. Proverbs 31, 10 through 31 says this. A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still dark, and she provides food for her family and portions for her servants' girls. She considers a field and buys it. She buys it out of her earnings from the plants in a vineyard. And she sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. And when it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. Her husband is clothed in linen. There we go. Her husband is respected at the city gate. When he takes his seat among the elders of the land, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household, and she does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. And he ends with this. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. I have two more lists I want to go through quickly. And tonight, as I journey through these lists, I want you to see that since, ladies, you are the more organized of the two of us sexes, that we spent specific time organizing these lists. And the first list I want to cover here are the attributes that are found in a Proverbs 31 woman. I want to point them out so you see them clearly. There's 8 of them. And then I want you to see how they're prioritized here through a lens of mine. The first one is this, that she is trustworthy, verse 11. She's trustworthy. She can be trusted. Not only is she trustworthy, but she's a hard worker. Guys, you should be looking for a young lady that is a hard worker. Not so that you can have 2 incomes within your house and you can buy a $500,000 house instead of a $300,000 house. That's not the reason. But she should be a hard worker. She should be diligent. Number 3, she should be resourceful. She should make good use of her time. Not only should she make good use of her time, but she should be wise with money. Why? So that she can be generous. Don't worry, ladies. I see you going up and down, head up and down, right down. I love you guys. I got you. I'll slow down. The Red Bull's kicking in. I'm ready. ADD meds gone. Red Bull in. Some of you liked that. She's proactive. And she's wise. I just want to, for a second, not put my wife on a pedestal, but tell you how I see these things within her. Young men, my hope and desire is that one day you too can say these things about your wife in the way that I do. One, Abby is trustworthy, not just with me, but with other women. If you encounter my wife and you share your deepest and darkest secrets with her, she is trustworthy with them. I can trust that Abby is not going out on the town and finding some other guy. My wife is a extravagantly hard worker. She takes great care within our household. But my wife is also very resourceful. Abby can make very little go very, very far. She also makes great use of her time. I know this because when I come home at the end of the day and Abby has worked a full day taking care of our kids, she makes time for me. She also is good with money. I have no idea how to pay a bill within our household. I'm not kidding. I don't know how many bills we have. I don't know what they cost. Abby is generous. She thinks way ahead. Not just a little bit, but way ahead. And I will tell you that my dear beloved bride is wise. I just said all those things so that you could write these down, not because I want her to see this online, okay? But Abby fulfills these things, and that's what I love as she's growing to become more like Christ, that she emulates these things. But there's a little bit of an expansion of the list here. I want to just give you these things that a virtuous woman prioritizes. It's a list of 10, and then I'm going to give you my 5, and we're going to wrap up with this. One, perfect. You guys rock. Micah, great job with the slides. One, she's full of faith. A virtuous woman serves God with all her heart, mind, and soul. She seeks his will for her life and follows his ways. Proverbs 31:26. Proverbs 31:29 through 31. I placed second that she is a married woman. And some of you are like, whoa, #single life. The reason that I moved marriage to the top of my list is this: a woman who is married, a virtuous woman who is married, respects her husband. She does good for him all the days of her life. She is a trustworthy helpmate. Do you know the word helpmate from Genesis chapter 2, when God is talking about Eve, is actually a representation of him being the ultimate helper and carer of his people. So if you are a married woman, the aspect of a virtuous woman within your life, marriage rises to the top because of the role and responsibility that you have. That's also why I put number 3 as mothering. And some of you are like, whoa, babies, wait, not on the list. I get that. But if you have them, they rise to the top of the list, because a virtuous woman teaches her children the ways of her Father in heaven. Service. A virtuous woman serves her husband, her family, her friends, her neighbors, and she is gentle and loving as she does it. Proverbs 31:12. She places a high regard in health. Scripture says that she cares for her body and she prepares healthy food for her family. Proverbs 31:14 and 15, and verses 17 as well. A virtuous woman is one who is a homemaker. She creates a living atmosphere of warmth and love for her family. And you're like, EJ, these are all the things in Better Home and Garden. Wait, I'm getting to it, okay? Because I get that most of you in the room are single. But again, I want you to see that as you're striving for something, the reason that you're striving for them. One, she creates time. She uses her time wisely. She works diligently to complete her daily tasks. She is a woman of virtue as she handles her finances. She's also a woman of industry, meaning that she can create not only an income, but if she sees a business proposal or something that she should act on, she can. She willingly works with her hands. And then the last one, number 10, a virtuous woman is a woman of worth and beauty. Not external, but internal, because of Christ. So I have 5 things that I want to wrap these things into. And this is very similar to the guys last week, but it has you young ladies spin on it. Let's start in verse 10. Before we get into the character qualities mentioned here, I just want to invest a little bit of time on the fundamental question here. Why should any female seek to be a godly woman? So verse 10 says this. Verse 10 says, an excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. Girls, I don't want to let you off easy, as I said earlier. But this victorious woman, this excellent woman, is one to be described that has excellent moral strength, moral worth, and moral virtue. The translation that says virtuous woman actually is emphasized here to describe so many women within our community. And guys, I have to say it because I said it last weekend, but you need to hear it further than what our young ladies heard. There are a ton of amazing, godly, Proverbs working on it, 31 women within this community. And if you are looking afar, instead of here, you are missing out. You are missing out. I'm ticked. Like, I really am. I'm serious. This is like my mean pastor voice, okay? I'm ticked. Because Abby and I sit down with our young ladies, and as we sit down with them, I look through these lists, and I see that I'm like, these girls are out there. And I hear our guys, they're like, there's just no girls at Collective. And I look at you, and I just go, you're so wrong. And I always say, like, okay, so tell me what they're missing. About 2 weeks ago, I almost decked a guy. In love. I'm righteous anger, I think, right now. Maybe not. And I looked at him and I just said, you have it so wrong. And I'm not kidding. I said, take off your hat. I need to pray for you right now. Some of you guys are missing out. And the reason you're missing out is because the young ladies are here. They're seeking after God. This virtuous woman is the same word that's used to describe Ruth in Ruth 3:11, where Boaz tells Ruth that all of his fellow townsmen know that she's a worthy woman. In the context of the chapter here, guys, there is this godly, virtuous woman that is in view here. But I don't think it's taking it too far out of the exegesis of this text to say that it applies beyond the wife, that it applies to young women, because she is far more precious than jewels. See, young ladies, the value of being a godly young woman within this community or as a Christ follower is because God regards you in that way. And gentlemen, having godly women within your life is far beyond the wealth that you and I can assign to it. That's why the text here says that it's beyond rubies, it's more precious than jewels. And you need to hear that, you need to see that. Because the Christian young woman who fears the Lord and has godly character is a must-have as you are in the pursuit of dating someone. So what do you need to be looking for? What do you need to be seeing within this young lady as you go after her and you pursue her in such a gentle, tender, and loving way? The first thing that you need to see is that she's trustworthy, verse 11. Notice again, this is what it says. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. See, trustworthiness is a character quality of all godly people. So it certainly applies to women who would be one to be sought out by a guy. But I want to look at the particulars here. So just bear with me for a minute. Not only does this woman have a man in her life, but he is close to her. And as he's close to her, he trusts her explicitly. Ladies, one of the virtues that you should have in your life is as a man is pursuing you, he can trust you explicitly. Here's what I have to say within that. Let me illustrate. I've seen some of our young couples begin to date. And as they begin to date, what happens is the girls are so enthralled with the guy, but then another guy starts to catch a little glimmer of their eye. And they start to flirt just a little bit. And the flirting moves on to something like, well, I don't know if he's the right guy for me. I don't know if he's the right type of guy. And and I'm not trying to poke fun. But what I am trying to say is that if you are in a relationship with a guy, he should be able to trust you explicitly. The text here says that she's loyal because she's faithful. Verse 12 says that she does him good and not harm all the days of her life. Certainly, as we mentioned before, this applies to all women, just not wives. Honest character is necessary for you to be one that should be pursued. And if it's not, you need to rethink how you're living. EJ, it seems like this is a pretty deep list of do's and don'ts. It is. But within it, it's coupled with Christ within you in such a way that as he bears witness within you, as he becomes a part of your life and furthers who you are in Jesus, your heart changes so that you are more trustworthy. See, God is a truth-telling, truth-keeping God. And we reflect on the honesty we're displaying this godly character. In fact, Solomon encourages this honest warning in Proverbs chapter 6. He says that God hates a lying tongue and he hates a false witness who breathes out lies. Ladies, if a young man can trust you, he will pursue you. Let me get off of this chair. I got to move this because I'm climbing now, okay? I only got 3 more points. I'm going to move fast. Listen to me. If he can't trust you in the dating relationship, he shouldn't pursue you. Guys, look at me. If you can't trust her, bail. Look at me again. If you can't trust her, I'm giving you permission to bail. Ladies, you have the opportunity to be the most trustworthy person within the pursuit. And you deserve every single bit of that trust back. Guys, here's where you do not get let off the hook. You need to be trusted. I feel like I'm a bull in a china shop right now. But this is serious. And you know why it's serious? Because so many of our young ladies, their hearts are getting broken. Gals, I'm asking you tonight, as you pursue to be this virtuous woman, be trustworthy. Because if you are, he should just swoon over you. Number 2, a godly woman is hardworking. Verses 13 through 19 says this. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She's like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamps do not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. You guys, obviously there's some cultural aspects working and that we need to mention here, but the point is rather clear. A godly woman is not interested in just sitting around and doing nothing and being lazy. And gentlemen, the reason that you should be interested in the young ladies within our community is I do not see them sitting around being lazy. Girls, amen? Amen. Louder, amen? Amen. Our ladies are hard working. And that is one of the reasons that you should pursue them. She does not lack effort and hard work. The Bible says it's not opposed to a rest and relaxation or leisure. Actually, it commands or commends hard work. Proverbs 12:11 says this, "Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, and he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense." You guys, hard work produces results. And Paul contracts this in 2 Thessalonians. I taught it last week in Big Church. See, godly women exert themselves. Even in the Old Testament, God made provision for rest with the Sabbath laws and so on, so that hard workers were not lazy in other times. Women of virtue are hard workers. Gentlemen, you should be looking for a lady who is a hard worker. If she is diligent now in her work, she will be diligent later within your family. Number 3, she's generous. Verse 20 says this, "She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy." Human generosity, again, reflects the generosity and graciousness of God. Everyone wants to be pursued. And as they are, one who pursues you equally with intention as you date them. A Proverbs 31 woman is generous with her time, her talent, and her energies. Remember what we just saw a few months ago in Ephesians chapter 4, that when we work hard, we not only have provision for ourselves, but we help those who are in need. Last time I taught on a dating series, the first week that we taught, who was here? You're scarred. You should remember this, okay? I talked through human anatomy and how God created man and woman. It was glorious and awkward all at the same time. Amen? Okay, if you weren't here, go back and listen. You'll look at me in a whole nother light. One of the sexiest things, you heard me. One of the sexiest things about Abby when I met her was how generous she was. It wasn't her hair. It wasn't her beautiful blue eyes. It was how generous she was. Young ladies, in the kindest way that I can be to you, if you do not feel like the young men in our community are pursuing you, I would challenge you today to be generous with your time, your talents, and your gifts. When a man sees a woman who loves Jesus and is pursuing him, and she is generous, it is attractive. Gentlemen, if you are not attracted to a woman who is generous with her time, talents, and abilities, you need to reframe your mindset. The reason for this is because a generous woman is one who is also dignified. Verse 25 and 26. Strength and dignity are her clothing. She laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. Dignity here, you guys, is translated as the word glory, splendor, and majesty. And young ladies, I do not want to suggest that in any way you need to conform to a specific look, feel, or vibe. But what I would ask you to conform to be more like Christ, is this: that you are dignified in who he is, that you are pure in heart, and you are respectable in your ways. I know that dignified and respectful mean different things to different people. And I'm not suggesting that you have a cookie cutter image. but particularly today amongst many of our young women and teenage girls, there is a sense of a desire to be more provocative and more seductive than any young man needs. This is not your fault. It is ours. But I deeply desire for each of you young women to be dignified in how you act and how you dress. I will say this, that at times I'm very challenged by the young women within our community and those I see at times who are becoming more and more seductive and more sensual. And I will say this, young ladies, I plead with you today to say this to you. The more you pursue those things, the harder it is for us to be in direct contrast over the things we desire to be for you. Because those are the things that unfortunately our minds run to and the things that our minds become powerless to. Young men, I will say this to you. You have the responsibility to help a young woman remain dignified. And all the guys said, amen. That was lame. Amen. Girls, if you have not felt that today I have been as predominant in my teaching to you as I was our young man last week, there is a reason for this. Because although I believe within my full heart that you are to pursue to be this Proverbs 31 woman, I, with equal contrast and even higher regard, believe that our young men need to step up to the plate. Ladies, for the vast majority of you, I look into your eyes and I see your faces as we sit and we talk, and these are the things that you are pursuing. Guys, I love you, but we have a lot more work to do. Ladies, the vast majority of you, I believe, live out Proverbs 31:30, where you fear the Lord. And I will say this and end in this manner, that young women who fear the Lord actively and honestly pursue being a virtuous woman. As we look at the text here today, a godly woman understands what Solomon wrote in Proverbs 1, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. A woman of worth, a woman of virtue, an excellent woman serves Christ so relentlessly with everything within her whole heart, that she desires to be whatever Christ wants her to be. And I want that for you. What I don't want is I do not want what the world has beaten into each and every one of you, that you are objectified. And the only way, ladies, that I believe in great godly wisdom and character and virtue that you can rise up against that is being a virtuous woman. I understand that at times your voice feels lesser. I understand that even within the church, at times your voice feels lesser. But I want you to know and understand that the commitment that I desire for not only you to make as a young woman pursuing these virtues, but as the young men pursue you, that it is one that is filled with a fear for the Lord, one that pursues truth, and a passion for the Lord that is full of dignity. And in this place, I want you to know that as your pastor, my deepest desire is that you are respected and loved as the women who you are becoming, the women who God has called you to be. I would implore you to seek out other godly women who have gone before you, who are living out these virtues. Because I am still a man. And there are still many things that I do not understand. Amen? But I do know this. I know what he has called you to be. A young woman who fears the Lord, who's full of dignity. And I'm pleading with you today to be just that. Gentlemen, this is my soapbox for you today. It is still your responsibility to uphold that dignity within our young women. Let me repeat that. Gentlemen, as you pursue a young lady, it is still your role, your responsibility to uphold and withhold the dignity of our young women. That means that you no longer get to say, if that's the boundary that you want, it's okay. You set the boundary. If you are in a pursuing relationship right now of a young woman, these are the things that you should desire for her to be able to uphold, to have dignity within. So I encourage you, I exhort you, I implore you today to help her in those things. Please be reminded, young men and young ladies, I desire for you to deeply hear this today, that beauty is fleeting, and it is not the thing that you should be chasing. Ladies, if your worth is wrapped up in your beauty, I ask you today to please cry out to the Lord and say, Jesus, will you help me? I want to be as transparent as I can, and band, you guys can come on out, worship team. This is a sit-down moment. Thanks. At times, I've reached out to Taylor and Ellie and Tyler and say, I just want to be more fun on stage. And Taylor always says, EJ, you're fun at times, it's okay, which I like. Ladies, if I can just get your attention up here. If he is not pursuing you for the right reason, you call me. I'm not your father, but I want you to know that I will take him out to lunch. I will sit down with him nicely, and I will drill the daylights out of him. Not with my fists. I'm not that good of a fighter. Emma, that's really good. Thank you. Gals, for so many of you, I believe that you've been put in a place within society where these virtues, they feel so worthless. And yet, what Christ is saying to you is they're worth everything. And so are you. And maybe for so long, people have just torn you down. And the value of these things just seems non-existent or undesirable. Today, I just want to pray that the bondage of that, the burden of that for you is lifted. I was joking with Taylor earlier, and I said, there's this moment that I have with brides when I get a a sneak peek. And I was like, I can't say that. And she goes, don't say that. And I said, but Taylor, you know what I mean, right? And she looked at me and she said, yeah. There's this moment as one of your pastors, if I'm blessed with the opportunity to marry you, young ladies, where I see you preparing for your husband. And I make eye contact with you. And as I do, I see all that God has created within you, that you have pursued these things as He has pursued you. And when we talk beforehand and I say, I know it is your deepest desire to honor Him with your life, to love Him as Christ loves the church, and you well up in the tear in your eye and you say, I do. I look at you young women and say, they get it. EJ, I'm not even dating. If the Lord, as He's preparing you, or if the Lord doesn't even have a husband for you, the reason to pursue these things does not change. Just the moment changes. EJ, what do you mean? Here's what I mean. There's a moment for all of us, married or not married, that we will look upon the Lord. And as we look to Him and see Him face to face, He will either say, I do not know you, or well done, good and faithful servant. And ladies, I believe that a large portion of your good and faithful servant, married or unmarried, is to live like a Proverbs 31 woman. And if that is the moment where I see you marry your husband, I will weep like I do many of times. And if that is the moment, since I'm older than you, I see you enter through the pearly gates and He says, well done, good and faithful servant, I will probably rejoice in that moment as well. But you have something to pursue. Do not let the pursuit of Christ and you becoming more like Him be dictated by your dating or non-dating relationship. Do you hear me, please, ladies? Pursue Him. Pursue to be more like Him. If you are hurting today, let me encourage you to pursue Him even more. There's a God in heaven that created you to be just